Hello guys, good morning and welcome back to the channel. I I literally scheduled the stream, but oh my god, my microphone. I literally scheduled the stream, but I forgot that I scheduled the stream. So I was like, wait, have I set stuff up? It's crazy. But I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be talking about some interesting topics, to be honest. Topics I didn't think I was going to be talking about today, but yeah, some really interesting topics. I think um it's gonna be interesting based on the videos I've done in the past on some of these topics. I think it's gonna be interesting, especially when it comes to Erik Ten Hag going to Leverkusen. I think that's a very interesting topic. Unfortunately, um, Luka Modric as well, retiring at Real Madrid. We'll talk about that as well. Excuse me. Yeah, and I think maybe we'll wrap it up with the Manchester United situation with Amorim, with Garnacho as well. So yeah, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the chat, and I hope we can get some engaging conversation going and some interesting questions. So we're gonna start off with. Let me just go to. We're on Twitter now at the moment. So let's just actually don't have my Twitter page linked to the stream. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. All right. So let us move to X and see what we can do. So, um, according to reports, I mean, Fabrizio Romano is probably accurate. So I think we can take this to the bank that Erik Ten Hag is definitely going to um, Leverkusen to be their manager. It's interesting. I think Erik Ten Hag definitely needs a redemption moment from the bad experience at Manchester United he had. I think he definitely needs a redemption moment, and I think Leverkusen is definitely that redemption moment, especially now that you know probably I mean half of that team is definitely gone. And in terms of quality, um, I think in terms of quality, they have some good quality players. I think with Frimpong going, I believe Verts is gonna go as well. I don't know about the other players. I think Boniface is still gonna be there. The goalkeeper is still gonna be there. I heard of Hikampe joining Alonso at Madrid, but I'm not sure with that. I think we're more focused on getting Hudson and Alvaro Fernandez and Trent as well. So I think looking at the base squad in Leverkusen, let's have a look at that actually while we are here. Um, Looking at the base squad with Leverkusen, I think Ten Hag does have a decent team on his that he can start building from. I think Garnacho, to be honest, it would be interesting to see if Ten Hag could go for a Garnacho coming into his team because he is gonna play the same system where Garnacho was really shining under him. So yeah, looking at the Leverkusen team, I think Jonathan Tah is going to Bayern Munich, so maybe that's one less defender, but he doesn't play a three back, so I think one less defender for Ten Hag would not necessarily be an issue. I think the rest of the team is pretty good, to be honest. Minus of maybe Florian Wirtz and a Jeremy Frimpong. I think Ten Hag would be able to get good results from um this team. And the switch from United to Leverkusen for Ten Hag, I think, would be a very big improvement for him. I think we're United. He did get given funds to get players in, but I think there are still limitations that managers face at United. I think we're gonna see that with Amorim this summer. In terms of signings, I think United are financially in trouble, and not winning that Europa League is really gonna affect them. It really is. Uh, I don't know how they're gonna get the signings done. I think it's gonna lead to players leaving. I think Garnacho is gone. I think Mainu is gone. Bruno Fernandes has a 120 million transfer fee on his head. Are United gonna cash in on that? We'll have to see as the days go by. We'll have to see. I doubt they'll do it, to be honest, because I do think Ruben Amorim is a big admirer of Bruno Fernandes. Same with I think Diego Dalot as well. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I do think definitely for sure, um, Garnacho is gone. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes next, Alejandro Garnacho. I think Napoli has been mentioned, but with Ten Hag going to Leverkusen, I think it wouldn't be it wouldn't be crazy to say that he would be interested in Garnacho because he did bring him from the United Academy. So it wouldn't be crazy to say that Ten Hag would be interested in um, Garnacho at Leverkusen. But yeah, I'm gonna be monitoring that with interest because I do think Ten Hag was a good manager. I think contrary to popular belief, I think Ten Hag would have been good at United if he was given time. I mean, as bad as he was, he went 2 seasons without um he went 2 seasons and won 2 trophies, That's not bad. His first season he got second, and his second season he got eighth. I don't think that is bad. I really don't think that's you know, a bad managerial record to have, especially in a club as big as Manchester United. So Erik Ten Hag was um I think Erik Ten Hag was forcefully kicked out of United, and I think it was I mean I'm not necessarily blaming Manchester United. I think the new owners coming in, they probably wanted their own guy, and they saw Erik Ten Hag, and they were like, yeah, not really, not really. So it does make sense. It does make sense that um he was gonna leave at the end of the season. But as I said, it's gonna be interesting to see how he performs in Leverkusen. I think he was at Bayern, understudy to Pep at Bayern. So he has always had a love for the German league. He was linked to a lot of German players when he was in Manchester United, and yeah, I really do think he's gonna perform at Leverkusen. I'm not really interested in what he's gonna do in the Bundesliga. I'm more interested in what he's gonna do in the Champions League. I would like to see him. He had a very good record in the Champions League with Ajax. Always qualifying for the knockout stages, and yeah, I'd really like to see what he's gonna do in the Champions League. If he can, get back to his glory days. I mean, people do forget that this is the same Ten Hag that took a I don't want to say average, but I would say maybe a not the best Ajax team to a European semifinal, Champions League semifinal. So I do think people forget that um sometimes. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting managerial acquisition. Speaking of managerial acquisitions, I believe next week Xabi Alonso is going to be officially revealed as not Manchester, as Real Madrid manager. I think I saw that on Fabrizio Romano's page. Let me just confirm that real quick. Where's Alonso at? Yeah, next week. Yeah, so he's gonna be revealed at Real Madrid next week. Very excited as a Real Madrid fan. Very excited to see what. Very excited to see how things are gonna be. Very excited to see that. I'll get to your comments very soon. Just want to get past some topics before we start talking about that. I think the topic we're going to talk about the most is probably going to be the United situation because I really think it's a topic. It's the hot topic at the moment. So yeah, let's just get these out of the way first. So yeah, with Alonso coming in, I believe I believe Trent would also be revealed next week because I believe Dean Huijsen has been officially um, revealed as a Real Madrid player. So I think Trent will have to be next as Alonso is coming in. I don't think I've really talked about Alonso coming to Madrid on stream. I think I talked about it on Twitch. Links in the description if you want to follow. I'll be streaming there today. Definitely be streaming there today. But yeah, links in the description below if you want to join on there. But Alonso at Real Madrid is big. I think it's looking at the past, managers we've had before, looking at um the style of play, looking at the style of play that the managers have, the managers in the past have employed at Real Madrid, you would, you know, expect Madrid to go for managers that are um don't have a style of play. So I think what makes Xabi Alonso's signing to Real Madrid big is the fact that he has a style of play. I think his style of play is going to be interesting to see if he implements. I have noticed a lot of people talk about the fact that he's not going to be able to implement a 3-4-3 in La Liga. We don't have any proof of that. I think it's very naive to say that the 3-4-3 Amorim system is not going to work in the La Liga. We don't have any proof of that being the case. We haven't seen any team play the 3-4-3 in La Liga, and I think it's unfair and kind of lazy, to be honest, to say something like that. What excites me about Alonso is the the existence of a system. I think Real Madrid have gone on for too long relying on individual quality. I don't have a problem with individual quality, but I think it gets to a point where the individual quality is not enough, I think it gets to a point where the individual quality doesn't shine through as much as you want it to be. If we're getting prime Cristiano Ronaldo, who is always on it every single moment of the day, I understand that. That actually makes some sort of sense. But when you're having players that are not on the level of a prime Cristiano Ronaldo, who cannot be on it all the time, we need a system. And I think we have some players that are, they have good individual qualities, but I think they work better in a system. Look at players like Chouamini. Look at players like Kamavinga. They have good individual qualities. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that they would be um, they would be better. They would be better in a system where they're told where to be and what to do. Because looking at Kamavinga is a very versatile player. Kamavinga is a type of player that can, play in various positions as we've seen him do. And I think he's gonna be a very good player in a system where he's being told to do this and focus on doing this, you know. And I think it's gonna be really big. It's gonna be really big. I think this might be a change in direction for Real Madrid in terms of the types of managers that we go for. And I'm really hoping that Xabi Alonso works in this Real Madrid system, sorry, in this Real Madrid team. And I really hope that he comes in and implements his system. I don't want to see Alonso coming in playing a formation he doesn't normally play. Come to Real Madrid, play your 3-4-3, and get it over with. I'm very excited about that because I've always been saying for some time now that Real Madrid need a system. We need a system where we can put players in positions and we can buy better. I think one thing people don't realize is when you have a system, you're able to buy better because you know what you need in a system. When you have individual players, you tend to buy, players that don't fit the system. Case in point is Mbappe. although he has scored, 40 plus goals this season, he has disrupted the balance in that Real Madrid team. And as I said, I probably mentioned this some time ago on stream. That's not an excuse for the team playing bad. I understand that, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. He still caused an imbalance in the team. His arrival caused an imbalance in the team, and I think without a system, that happens a lot easier. That happens a lot easier than it is when you do have a system. Knowing you need these type of player, you need that type of player to do this specific role or that specific role. So again, I think this could be I think this could be a real shift for Real Madrid moving forward as the years go by, especially when it comes to um, managers that we're going to be getting into the club. And I think signings as well is going to be um, improved. Speaking of Real Madrid, Luka Modric, legend of the game, retiring. And I think, I mean, as the season was coming to a close, reports came out that he was going to stay or was going to try and stay at another, stay for another year, with reduced wages and all of that, all of that great stuff. But unfortunately, I think, if you put two and two together, obviously Madrid didn't want him to stay. And I mean, I kind of have a problem with that. I kind of have an issue with that. I mean, Real Madrid, when it comes to um, keeping players and selling players, especially when it's legends of the club, they do tend to treat them a little bit, wishy-washy. It's kind of weird, but I don't think there was any bad blood. I think maybe, I mean, Perez and Modric will probably be friends. They'll be very close. They probably sat down, have had a conversation about the whole situation, and yeah, I'm sure they just came to a conclusion that look, we're trying to fast track our way to, recovering from a bad season for us. I mean, we've lost every single El Clasico this season, so I think yeah, Madrid can confidently say this has been a bad season for us in not just the league domestically, but continentally as well in Europe. We've not had the best season. So I'm sure Perez is looking at the situation. It's like we need to fast track and do something really big next season. From what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing online, Madrid are looking to make another marquee signing. And it's looking like it's going to be Nico Williams. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not really gonna complain. It's gonna be interesting to see. Again, I think logically it's gonna take a while for us to bounce back. It's gonna be a miracle if Xabi Alonso can instantly come to La Liga and take a Real Madrid team that's it's not bad. I mean, the Real Madrid team is not bad. We're stacked with quality, so it would be a little bit of a surprise if he's able to come into La Liga and really rival this Barcelona team. Because this Barcelona team, um, although they're not getting linked to players, it's looking really good for them. Like the current team they have at the moment is looking really good for them for the future. Lamine Yamal, obviously, cooking at the moment. Pedri, Kobarsi, the Gerard Martin. They've got a lot of young players in this squad. I think if they could get in a young striker into the team, I think they could be cooking. They could really, really be cooking next season. So it would be a surprise, and it would be a welcome surprise if Xabi Alonso is able to come into this come into this Real Madrid team and get instant results. It really would. It would be big because Hansi Flick is getting a tune out of these Barcelona players. So it will be really big to see if Alonso can come in and put up a big fight um, coming in. Let's get into some of your comments, and we'll talk about Manchester United a little bit because it's gonna be big. It's gonna be a long talk about Manchester United. I think I don't want to spend too much time. I spent a lot of time yesterday, um, on stream. Give me a moment, actually. I want to check something real quick. All right, we're back. Sorry for the long pause. That was very not good. I had to literally check my laptop, streaming from the laptop. Stressful. Had to check some settings and realized that the laptop wasn't plugged in. So it would have been streaming and the laptop just goes off. So, all right, let's get into some of the comments before we move on to talk about Ruben Amorim and his future, and we'll talk about Garnacho as well. I mean, why not? So, FGH, first comment of the day. I think yesterday as well. He was the first comment of the day. Shout out to FGH. So, FGH says, it's tough to rebuild with no European football and limited budget. Um, I would need a little bit of context for that. Are you referring to Amorim? I would like to think you're referring to Amorim because I don't know if Ten Hag wouldn't have. I think Ten Hag joining Leverkusen would have European budget. So I think you'll be referring to Amorim. So we'll get into that as we're talking about when we start talking about Ruben Amorim. We'll definitely get into that. Another comment about Amorim. Okay, so would Amorim have succeeded at a more stable club, or is he just not ready for the top level yet. So another question that we'll get into when we start talking about Ruben Amorim. Malfoy again. Um, Talking about Modric. Modric is the best midfielder I have ever watched. Interesting to hear. I mean, definitely one of the best. He's up there. How much blame is Amorim? All right. I think most of these comments are about Amorim, so we'll definitely get into that. Okay, Arthur Mel. Was it a mistake for Ajax not to push harder to bring him back? I think this would be in relation to Erik Ten Hag. I think let's see. I don't think Erik Ten Hag wanted to go to Ajax. I don't think Erik Ten Hag wanted to go back to Ajax. I think it would have been a risk for him, and I'm sure he was very well aware of how risky it would have been to go back to Ajax and not do well. Because if he keep in mind, if he goes back to Ajax and they don't do well, it's gonna be more of a it's gonna be like trepidatious, between him and the fans. And Ajax fans have a spot for a spot in their heart for Jesus Christ. Sorry about that. I just smacked the daylights out of my microphone. Yeah, as I was saying, Ajax fans have some, a soft spot for Erik Ten Hag, and I think it would have been risky for him to go back to Ajax and um try to, you know, try and fix them, because at the moment they are in shambles. At the moment, Ajax are absolutely in shambles. I don't know how they lost the league to PSV on the final day. It was very, very, yeah, it was very, very not good from Ajax. So looking at the situation there, it would have been very, very difficult for Ten Hag to go into that club, go into that situation, and do what he did when he came there the first time. The second time is never as nice as the first time. That's always a thing when it comes to managing a former club. Vexar says, do you think Ten Hag can replicate what Alonso did at Leverkusen? It would be outstanding if Ten Hag was able to replicate what Alonso did. Remember, Alonso went invincible in his first official season at Bayer Leverkusen. He went unbeaten. That is like he only lost his last game of the season, I think. Okay, not his last game, but the Europa final. That's the only game he lost that season. He went invincible. It's gonna be tough. I doubt that Ten Hag is gonna go invincible in his first season for Leverkusen. What Alonso did at Leverkusen was absolutely special. I don't think it's gonna be replicated and by anyone, to be very honest with you. But we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. But I do think he's gonna be successful at Leverkusen for sure. For sure. Okay, we're almost at a 30-minute mark. Let's talk about Manchester United. Ruben Amorim, what's his future looking like? I think it's gonna be difficult. Um, I think FGH said that earlier. I think he was referring to Amorim. He said it's tough to rebuild with no European football and a limited budget. I think FGH has got that absolutely spot on, and yeah, it's gonna be difficult. I think European football, the amount of money teams are getting from the Champions League is insane. You qualify for the Champions League, instant 100 million just to be in the Champions League. Like, teams were not getting this amount of money in the past. So it's absolutely insane the amount of money floating around in the Champions League. So if you want your club to be successful for years to come, you definitely would want to be in the Champions League, because it's crazy. It's really crazy the amount of money swishing around in that competition. So a lack of European football is definitely gonna harm Amorim. And with that lack of European football, I think comes, as FGH said again, a limited budget. Signings are going to be difficult. I think people are thinking about players like Marcus Rashford leaving. Anthony leaving. I think those players have been accounted for. I'm gonna be real with you. I think those players have already been accounted for in terms of Manchester United's budget. I think those players have been accounted for because looking at the signings that they're making, you could see that they have some amount of money, but they need that extra. Two signings that I think are going to be guaranteed for Manchester United are Liam Delap and Mateus Cunha. It's just a matter of when they're going to be announced. Are these two players good enough to push Manchester United to where they need to be? I don't know. I don't know. And you know, as Draco's Malfoy was saying, would Amorim have succeeded at a more stable club, or is he just not ready at the top level yet? That's a good question because if you had to look at that, Europa League final, that was a little bit, you know, amateurish from Ruben Amorim, and I mean that in no, harsh or insulting way. I do, look at the situation. I mean, that starting lineup he picked going into that final was really, really amateurish at best to say. I think the players he picked, the lineup, the substitutions, I think it was just weird. So you might be right. You might have a point, Malfoy. You might have a point that Amarim is maybe not ready for that level. Maybe he's not ready for the big teams. Maybe he moved too early from Sporting to Manchester United. But yeah, I think it's gonna be difficult. It's really gonna be difficult for him next season. Um, I'll be interested to see the type of players, the type of signings that he's going to be given because if you look at the past, not players, managers like Ten Hag, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, even Mourinho were backed with players. I mean, Mourinho went out to get Pogba, to get Zlatan, to get I think Fellaini as well. A lot of players were offered to Mourinho when he was the manager. Same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Solskjaer went for Sancho. Solskjaer went for Maguire. You know, a lot of players, a decent amount of players were given to these managers, and it's looking like, from the way things are going, it's looking like Amarim is not going to get that back in, and his job is already difficult as is, and with the absence of backing, it's going to be even more difficult. So I think he's got a job on his hands. He's definitely got a job on his hands, and we're going to see how it plays out because I don't think it's gonna work out. I'm just gonna give my opinion now. I don't think it's gonna work out. I think this is gonna be a cycle at Manchester United where a manager comes in, he tries his best, he tries to implement his style. He doesn't get properly backed, or the type of players he wants to get are not gods for him. And then, one thing leads to another, bad result here and there, and he ends up having to leave. Um, how much blame, as Frederick is asking, how much blame does Amorim really deserve for this season's collapse? Tough question. Um, I'm not a Manchester United fan, so I can't speak on how Manchester United fans are going to feel. I'm just gonna speak from a neutral perspective. Looking at the situation now, I think you do need to apportion some blame to Ruben Amorim. Not a lot of blame, maybe 20%. 20% would be decent, amount of blame to apportion to Amorim for this season. The reason I say you can't really blame him is he hasn't really been backed. I mean, look at the January transfer window. He got only one player in Patrick Dorgu, and that is a 20-year-old left back, and he hasn't really been able to get a tune out of these players in the league. But I think where you can blame him is some of his decision making uh in terms of starting 11, in terms of substitutions, in terms of players on the bench. I think you can't blame him to some certain extent when it comes to that aspect, especially the final. I think that final, unless it was intentional, I think that final is really going to affect him. It really is. And I think next season, unfortunately for Amorim, next season's expectations from Manchester United fans are going to be massive. Not being in the in the Champions League, not having European football to play is going to mount a lot of pressure on Amorim next season. They're going to be expecting probably top 6, top 4. I think top 8 would be bad. I think finishing 16th and finishing 8th in your second season, I think Manchester United fans would definitely not be having that. I mean, Ten Hag finished second and finished 8th in his second season, and people were calling for his head, you know. So I think Amarim is gonna have to. He's going to have to overachieve next season because logically, looking at Manchester United, if you finish 16th, you would logically expect that the next step up will probably be an 8th. You wouldn't be. People don't always move from 16 to top 4. Even Nottingham Forest tried it this season, and it didn't work out through to the end of the season. So it's not an easy feat to accomplish when it comes to moving up the league. And teams are going to be improved next season. I mean, if Arsenal get Gyökeres, and I think they're linked to Rodrigo as well, that's a big improvement for Arsenal. Liverpool, Arne Slot would like to actually now implement his philosophy because he's still under the guise of this is Klopp's team. So he definitely would want to build his team and build his get his players into the team. So Klopp is definitely not Klopp. Slot is definitely going to try and improve next season. Pep Guardiola is going to be looking to have a renaissance next season from what happened this season. A lot of managers, Newcastle as well, would also like to do something interesting because they would like to keep players like Isak in the team. And I think with players like Isak, if Newcastle don't match his ambition, because Isak is a world class player at the moment. He is one of the best strikers in the world at the moment. So he's definitely hot. In the markets. It's just that teams know that Newcastle are going to be asking for a stupid amount of money, and the only way Newcastle can keep that value of whatever amount of money they value Isak at is to be competitive in not just the league but in the Champions League as well. Look at Aston Villa this season. They made it to a quarterfinal of the Champions League and only got beat by a team that's in the final now. It's not as if they got beat by a team that went out in the semifinal. It's actually pretty impressive what Aston Villa was able to do in the Champions League this season. So if Newcastle can do anything close to that, I think they would have a better chance of keeping Isak next season. Fortifying the team as well, building the team around Isak would also be very beneficial for Newcastle. So yeah, it's not going to be easy for United to move all the way from 16th to top 4 or top 6. And unfortunately for Amorim, that's going to be the expectation from the fans because no Champions League football, you're going to be playing one game a week. Some fans have literally said that with the lack of Champions League football, the players are going to be training a lot more, which I do think is stupid, by the way, because, you need the Champions League money more than you need, more time in the training ground for players. So it's a really weird take some Manchester United fans have. But hey, again, I'm not a Manchester United fan, so I can't really talk for them. But yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see next season. It's gonna be interesting to see for most teams. I think Real Madrid have an interesting project going on. It'll be interesting to see if um, Hansi Flick can do something, sorry, can continue his form with Barcelona and the signings they're going to make. Manchester United, we're going to see how long Amorim can last. We're going to see what Ten Hag is going to be doing at Leverkusen. So a lot of interesting stuff going to be happening next season. And eyes are going to be definitely on Ruben Amorim and his job. But yeah, It's gonna be interesting. It really is gonna be interesting. One thing I keep thinking about is if Ruben Amorim does get sacked, who do you think is actually gonna be the next manager? Like logically thinking about it, who do you think is gonna be next in line to be a Manchester United manager? Because the only managers I can think of at the moment are Gareth Southgate and no one else. Gareth Southgate is the only one I can think of at the moment that could, potentially get linked to a Manchester United job, because the rest of the managers are gone. Ancelotti's gone to Brazil. Ten Hag definitely isn't coming back. Unless you're gonna take a manager out of a job again, like they did with Amorim, and even with that, that manager or whoever is gonna come into the club is gonna, ask for different incentives than Ruben Amorim. Looking at what Ruben Amorim has gone through this season, not a lot of managers would be excited to come join a team mid season. Looking at what has happened with Amorim, so they're really going to be excited. I predict Amorim is gone by Halloween. That's my prediction. I might be wrong, I might be right, but my prediction is Ruben Amorim is gone by November ish time. Around that November ish time, Ruben Amorim is definitely going to be gone, because I don't think the players are going to have the quality to keep Ruben Amorim up, especially if players like Bruno Fernandes are still in the team. Um, I don't also think they're gonna add too much quality to the team that's going to improve their play when it comes to, you know, style of play. All right, let me answer the rest of the question. Evander Fury, I really like Amorim's philosophy, but this season was a disaster. Definitely agree with you. It definitely was a disaster, but it was, no fault of his own. It was due to a bad start to the season, a lot of mishaps happening in the season. I think if I'm let me be real with you. I think Manchester United's owners are just evil. I'm just gonna be say that straightforward. I think the owners of Manchester United are just evil. I I've had some time to really sit down and look at the financial situation at Manchester United, and it is bad. Like, it is so bad. And to think they have owners that are just you know unfazed about how bad the financial situation is in Manchester United. Like, you would think owners of a football club would actually want the football club to be successful, but they don't seem to get the memo. And I mean, Sir Jim Radcliffe, by the way, taking a club as big as Manchester United and turning it to what it is at the moment is really just it really is just something else. It really is just something else. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's short, Anaky Talks episode. Real, interesting conversations. Appreciate the comments in the live chats. Let me know what you do think in the comment section below. I will try my best to answer as many questions as I can in the comment sections about the topic. As usual, any feedback from you guys would be greatly appreciated. Stay safe out there. Peace.